Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars drift past on the main screen. The exploration ship UES Horizon had been traveling through empty space for 3 weeks now. They were near the Vega system, mapping new planets, and looking for anything interesting. So far, they had found nothing but rocks and gas clouds. Jake was about to call it a day when his communications officer looked up from her station. Lisa Grant had been with the ship for 2 years, and Jake had never seen her look so confused. "Captain, I'm getting something strange," Lisa said. She pressed her earpiece closer to her head. "It's not like anything in our database." Jake walked over to her station. The screen showed wave patterns that looked nothing like human signals. They were too organized to be natural, but too alien to be from any known species. "Can you clean it up?" Jake asked. Lisa worked her controls for several minutes. The signal got clearer, but it was still impossible to understand. The patterns repeated every few seconds, with small changes each time. "It's definitely from someone intelligent," Lisa said. "See these mathematical sequences? They're using prime numbers and geometric patterns, but the language is completely unknown." Jake called over Dr. Helen Cross, the ship's science officer. Helen was an expert in alien languages, though she had never found any real aliens to talk to before now. She studied the patterns on Lisa's screen and frowned. "This is incredible," Helen said quietly. "Look at these repetitions. They're not random. Someone is trying very hard to make themselves understood." "Can you translate it?" Jake asked. "Maybe, but I'll need the AI computer to help me." Helen sat down at her station and began feeding the signal into the ship's main computer. "This could take hours," Jake nodded. "Do whatever you need to do. Lisa, keep recording everything." For the next 6 hours, Helen worked with the computer to break down the alien message. Jake stayed on the bridge, drinking coffee and watching the progress. The other crew members gathered around, curious about humanity's first contact with aliens. Finally, Helen looked up from her screen. Her face was pale. "Captain, you need to see this," she said. The main screen showed the translated message. The words were simple, but they hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. "We are the Kalari. Our star is dying faster than our scientists predicted. We have only months before our world becomes uninhabitable. 12 billion of our people will die unless someone helps us evacuate. We have sent this message to 17 different civilizations. So far, none have agreed to help. Some offered to take a few thousand of us, but no more. We cannot save everyone with such small numbers. We are running out of hope. If anyone receives this message and has the ability to help, please respond. We do not ask for charity. We will work for our rescue. We will share our knowledge. We will be grateful forever. But please, if you can hear this, do not let 12 billion innocent people die when you could save them. Time is running short. Our coordinates are included in this transmission. We die with honor knowing we tried." The bridge was completely silent. Jake read the message 3 times, making sure he understood it correctly. 12 billion people, an entire civilization about to be wiped out, and 17 other species had already said no. "How far away are they?" Jake asked. Helen checked her instruments. "About 27 light years in the Kepler system." "What kind of people are they?" "Based on their signal patterns and the mathematics they use, they're highly intelligent. Probably more advanced than us in some ways. But their star is collapsing and there's nothing they can do to stop it." Jake walked back to his command chair. His hands were shaking slightly. This was the biggest decision he had ever faced. If he reported this to Earth, it would change everything. The human government would have to decide whether to attempt the largest rescue operation in history, or let billions of innocent beings die. "Lisa, open a channel to Earth Command," Jake said. "Priority Alpha. I need to speak to Admiral Kate Sullivan immediately." It took 20 minutes for the signal to reach Earth and for Admiral Sullivan to respond. When her face appeared on the screen, she looked tired. It was late at night in Washington. "This better be important, Jake," she said. "I was in the middle of a meeting with the President." "It is, Admiral. We've received a distress call from an alien civilization. They're facing complete extinction in a matter of months." Admiral Sullivan's expression changed completely. She leaned forward in her chair. Send me everything you have. Right now. Jake had Helen transmit all the data they had collected. He watched Admiral Sullivan's face as she read the translated message. Her eyes grew wider with each line. 12 billion, she whispered. Dear God. What are your orders, Admiral? Jake asked. Stay in your current position and keep monitoring their signal. I need to take this to the President and the World Council, immediately. This is bigger than anything we've ever dealt with. The transmission ended and Jake was left alone with his crew and the weight of what they had discovered. He looked around the bridge at their faces. Everyone understood what this meant. Captain, Lisa said quietly, do you think Earth will help them? Jake didn't answer right away. He thought about humanity's history. Sometimes people did terrible things to each other, but sometimes when faced with real tragedy, humans surprised everyone with their capacity for compassion. I don't know, he said finally, but I hope so. On Earth, Admiral Sullivan rushed through the corridors of the Global Defense Building. She had never moved so fast in her life. The President was still in his emergency meeting with the World Council, discussing trade disputes and border conflicts. All of that seemed incredibly small now. She burst through the doors of the Situation Room. 24 world leaders turned to look at her, surprised by the interruption. Mr. President, she said, slightly out of breath. We have a situation. A big one. President Martin Hayes looked annoyed. Admiral, we're in the middle of important negotiations. This better be urgent. 12 billion people are going to die unless we do something about it, Admiral Sullivan said, and they're not human. The room fell completely silent. Every person at the table stared at her. Explain, the President said quietly. Admiral Sullivan activated the room's main display and showed them the Kalari message. As the world leaders read the translated words, their expressions changed from confusion to shock to something approaching horror. This is confirmed? Asked Prime Minister Chen from the Pacific Alliance. Our best people have verified it. The I signal is genuine. The mathematics check out. Their star is collapsing ahead of schedule, and an entire civilization is facing extinction. How many other species have they contacted? Asked President Volkov from the European Federation. 17. All of them refused to help, or offered only token assistance. The room was quiet for a long moment. Everyone understood the implications. If humanity chose to help, it would require the largest logistics operation in their history. If they chose not to help, 12 billion intelligent beings would die. Finally, President Hayes spoke. What would it take to save them? Admiral Sullivan had been thinking about this during her rush to the Situation Room. Everything we have, every transport, ship, every military vessel we can spare, every resource we can gather, it would be the biggest operation humanity has ever attempted. The cost would be enormous, said Chancellor Weber from the German states. We're talking about evacuating an entire planet's population across interstellar distances. The political complications alone, began Minister Singh from the Indian Republic. Stop. The voice came from General Rodriguez, the military representative from South America. He was an old soldier who had seen combat in 3 different wars. I've read their message. Look at the last line. We die with honor, knowing we tried. These people are facing the end of everything they've ever known, and they're still maintaining their dignity. 17 other civilizations told them no. Are we really going to be the 18th? The room was quiet again. President Hayes looked around the table at each leader's face. All in favor of attempting a rescue operation, he said finally. Every hand in the room went up. Within an hour, orders were flashing across human space. Every military base, every shipyard, every space station received the same message. Humanity was going to war against extinction itself, and they were going to win. The alarm bells rang across every human military base in the solar system at exactly 800 hours. From Mars Station to the Jupiter mining colonies, from the Luna shipyards to the asteroid belt factories, the same message appeared on every screen. Operation Lifeline was now active. Admiral Ray Thompson had been drinking his morning coffee when the call came. Within 10 minutes, he was dressed and rushing toward the command center at Earth Defense Headquarters. He had commanded fleets before, but never anything like this. The scope was beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. "Give me the numbers," Thompson said as he entered the war room. Colonel Mary Phillips, his chief of staff, looked up from her datapad. Her face was grim. "We need to evacuate 12 billion beings across 27 light-years. Our largest transport operation before. This moved 50,000 people from the Europa colony. This is 240,000 times bigger." Thompson sat down heavily in his chair. "How many ships do we have?" "Every cargo hauler, passenger liner, and military transport in human space gives us about 400 vessels. That's not nearly enough. We need to convert civilian ships. Do it. Send orders to every commercial shipping company. We're commandeering their fleets under emergency powers." Across the system, ship captains received orders that changed their lives forever. Captain Amy Martinez was unloading grain shipments at Ceres Station when the military officers arrived. They handed her new orders and a team of engineers. "Ma'am, we need your ship converted for passenger transport within 72 hours, said Lieutenant Commander Bob Turner. He was young, but his eyes were serious. "You'll be carrying Kalari refugees." Amy looked at her cargo ship, the Big Sky. It was designed to carry grain and manufactured goods, not living beings. "How many passengers?" "About 15,000, based on Kalari body size." Amy's mouth fell open. Her ship's crew quarters could hold maybe 20 people comfortably. "That's impossible. We don't have life support for that many. We're installing additional systems now. The engineering teams are working around the clock." All across human space, similar scenes played out. The massive cargo ship Northern Star was being fitted with temporary passenger pods. The luxury liner Golden Dream had her elegant dining room stripped out and replaced with basic sleeping areas. Even old freighters that hadn't flown in years were being pulled from scrapyards and rebuilt. On Luna, engineer Tony Garcia led the conversion project for the civilian fleet. He had worked on spacecraft design for 15 years, but this challenge was unlike anything he had seen. "The biggest problem is life support," Tony explained to his team. "These Kalari beings need different atmospheric conditions than humans. We need to modify every air recycling system on 800 ships." "What exactly do they breathe?" asked Sarah Kim, his assistant engineer. Tony pulled up the data they had received from the Kalari signal. "Similar to our air, but with higher nitrogen content and trace minerals we don't normally need. Plus, they require specific electromagnetic fields to maintain their crystalline structure." The work proceeded at an incredible pace. Welding torches burned day and night as civilian ships were torn apart and rebuilt. Manufacturing plants that normally made consumer goods switched to producing life support equipment. The Luna shipyards, usually building one new ship per month, started assembling prefabricated passenger modules at a rate of 20 per day. Meanwhile, General Nick Parker prepared the military escort. He stood in his command center, looking at the deployment map. Red dots showed the locations of every human warship. "Sir, pulling this many ships from patrol duty leaves our colonies practically defenseless," warned Captain Diana Ross, his tactical advisor. "I know," Parker replied. "But if we don't escort the evacuation fleet, we might lose everything anyway. Unknown alien species are out there, and some of them already refuse to help the Kalari. They might not want us helping either." Parker's forces included 200 of humanity's best warships. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and support vessels. It represented 60% of the human military's total strength. Never before had so many ships been deployed on a single mission. Captain Beth Collins received her orders while her destroyer squadron was patrolling the outer system. She was to take her ships and race ahead of the main fleet to the Kalari system. "Our job is reconnaissance and early warning," she explained to her squadron commanders over the comm system. "We need to know what we're flying into before the transports arrive." Intel suggests other alien species might already be in the area. Collins's ships, including her flagship Ranger, began immediate preparations for the longest journey in human military history. Her crews worked to maximize fuel efficiency and reduce travel time. Every hour counted when an entire civilization was dying. Back on Earth, Dr. Sam Wright faced a different challenge. As humanity's leading expert on alien biology, he needed to figure out how to keep 12 billion Kalari alive during the journey. "We know they're crystalline in structure," Sam explained to his research team, "but we don't understand their metabolism or what they need to survive long trips in space." His team worked with the limited information from the Kalari distress signal. They learned that the aliens required specific minerals to maintain their health, and that prolonged separation from electromagnetic fields could cause them to weaken or even die. "We need to start mining operations immediately," Sam told the Resource Allocation Committee. "The asteroid belt has most of the minerals they need, but we'll have to process millions of tons." The mining consortiums received their orders within hours. Every asteroid mining ship in the belt began extracting specific ores. Refineries that normally produced steel for construction switched to producing the trace minerals that Kalari biology required. The industrial output of human civilization shifted overnight. Commander Alex Stone had perhaps the most complex job of all. As logistics coordinator, he needed to plan supply lines across interstellar distances. His office was filled with charts, computers, and constantly ringing communication devices. "Think of it like a pipeline," Alex explained to his staff. "We establish relay stations every few light years. Ships can refuel, restock supplies, and transfer passengers if needed. We're essentially building a highway from the Kalari system to human space." The relay stations required their own massive construction effort. Mobile shipyards were dispatched to empty star systems along the route. These temporary bases would provide fuel, food, medical supplies, and repairs for the evacuation fleet. Alex's biggest worry was time. "Every day we spend in preparation is one less day the Kalari have. Their star could collapse sooner than predicted." The industrial mobilization was unprecedented. Factories on Earth worked 3 shifts per day. The Mars colonies redirected their entire manufacturing capacity to the evacuation effort. Even the agricultural stations began growing food that Kalari could eat, based on the biological data from their signal. News reporters struggled to convey the scale of the operation. The evening news showed endless streams of ships being converted, workers installing new equipment, and military vessels departing for distant stars. "In the 72 hours since receiving the Kalari distress signal," reported news anchor Kevin Bradley, "humanity has begun the largest logistics operation in our species' history. 847 transport ships, 200 military escorts, 94 supply vessels, and 12 mobile shipyards are being prepared for Operation Lifeline." Public reaction was mixed, but largely supportive. Some people worried about the cost and the risk to human colonies left undefended. But most citizens supported the rescue effort. "These are innocent people facing extinction," said Maria Gonzalez, a factory worker helping to build life support systems. "If we don't help them, who will? What kind of species would we be if we just let them die?" Religious leaders across Earth called for prayer and support for the mission. Charity organizations collected supplies and money. Children in schools learned about the Kalari and drew pictures of the crystalline beings they hoped to save. The technical challenges seemed to multiply every hour. Kalari required different gravity levels than humans were used to. Their ships needed to maintain specific temperature ranges. The electromagnetic fields they needed conflicted with some human electronic systems. But human engineers found solutions. Artificial gravity generators were modified. Electromagnetic field generators were installed in cargo holds. Temperature control systems were upgraded. Every problem had an answer, even if it required working 20-hour days to find it. As the fleet assembled, the scale became truly visible. At the Luna staging area, hundreds of ships floated in formation. Transport vessels as large as city blocks sat next to sleek military destroyers. Supply ships carried everything from food to replacement parts to medical equipment. Admiral Thompson stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching the preparations. His fleet represented not just ships and weapons, but the determination of an entire species to do what was right. "Sir," said Colonel Phillips, approaching with the latest reports. "The advanced scouts report they'll reach the Kalari system in 18 days. The main fleet will follow 6 days behind them." Thompson nodded. And the Kalari star? Captain Beth Collins watched the Kalari system appear on her main screen as her destroyer squadron dropped out of faster-than-light speed. What she saw made her heart sink. The star was much worse than their long-range sensors had suggested. "My God," whispered her science officer, Lieutenant Gary Woods. "Look at those solar flares." The Kalari sun was throwing massive streams of radiation into space. Some of the flares were larger than planets. The star's surface was covered in dark spots and violent eruptions. It was clearly dying faster than anyone had predicted. "How long do we have?" Collins asked. Woods worked at his instruments for several minutes. "Based on the current rate of decay, maybe 3 months. Could be less if the collapse accelerates." Collins activated her communication system. "All ships, begin detailed scans of the system. I want to know the condition of every planet and station." Her 5 destroyers spread out across the system, their sensors recording everything. The Kalari had built their civilization across multiple worlds, not just their home planet. There were cities on moons, space stations around gas giants, and mining colonies in the asteroid belts. "Captain," called Lieutenant Susan Park from the communication station, "I'm detecting signals from the Kalari. They know we're here." The main screen showed the translated message from the Kalari government. The words appeared in simple English, but Collins could sense the emotion behind them. "Unknown vessels, we are the Kalari Planetary Council. We do not recognize your ship designs. Are you here to help us? Please respond. We are running out of time." Collins looked around her bridge at her crew. These were military people trained for combat and exploration, but the desperation in that message touched all of them. "Open a channel," Collins ordered. "This is Captain Beth Collins of the Human Fleet. We received your distress call. We're here to evacuate your entire population. Our main fleet will arrive in 6 days with transport ships for all 12 billion of your people." The response came back within minutes. Collins had expected gratitude or relief. Instead, the Kalari message was filled with confusion. "Human fleet? We do not understand. Your species was not among the 17 we contacted. How do you know about our situation? And did you say 12 billion? That is our entire population. No species has the resources to evacuate so many." Collins smiled as she prepared her response. "We intercepted your distress signal. And you're wrong about no species having the resources. Humans do. We're bringing 800 ships to get you out of here." While Collins established contact with the Kalari, her other ships were discovering the true scope of the challenge ahead. The radiation from the dying star had already made the outer planets uninhabitable. 3 Kalari worlds were completely empty. Their populations moved to the inner system. Captain Rick Davis, commanding the destroyer Phoenix, reported back to Collins with grim news. "The Kalari have already lost almost 1 billion people to radiation poisoning. Their medical facilities are overwhelmed. And Beth, their ships are beautiful, but they're not built for long-distance evacuation. Most can barely make it between planets." The Kalari ships were indeed beautiful. They looked like flying crystals, their hulls made of the same material as the Kalari themselves, but they were designed for system travel, not interstellar journeys. Collins received detailed information about Kalari biology from their scientists. The beings were indeed crystalline, but they were warm and alive. They needed specific minerals to survive, just like humans needed vitamins. They also required electromagnetic fields to maintain their structure, especially during stress. "Captain Collins," came another message from the Kalari Council. "We have prepared detailed information about our population distribution, but we must warn you, our outer colonies are already being evacuated to the inner worlds. The radiation is killing our people." Collins studied the population reports. The Kalari had spread across their system over thousands of years. There were major cities on 4 planets, hundreds of space stations, and thousands of smaller settlements. Getting to all of them would require perfect coordination. "All right, people," Collins announced to her squadron. "We're going to map every Kalari settlement and plan evacuation routes. When our transport fleet arrives, I want to be ready to direct them immediately to where they're needed most." As her ships worked, Collins noticed something on her long-range sensors. There were other ships at the edge of the system. Non-human designs, but not Kalari either. Lieutenant Park, focus our sensors on those contacts at the system's edge, Collins ordered. The image that appeared on screen made Collins's blood run cold. There were dozens of alien ships, clearly from multiple species. They were just sitting there watching the Kalari system die. Captain, Park said quietly, I'm detecting communication signals between those ships. They're coordinating something. Collins had her communications officer intercept and translate the alien signals. What she learned made her angry. The alien ships belonged to something called the Hegemony, an alliance of species that controlled much of this region of space. They were waiting for the Kalari to die so they could claim salvage rights to their technology and territory. One intercepted message was particularly revealing. It was from a ship commander to his government. The Kalari will be extinct within months. Their crystal technology and stellar engineering knowledge will be valuable. We estimate their total technological worth at billions of credits. Recommend maintaining watch until extinction is complete. Collins had been a military officer for 15 years. She had fought pirates and hostile aliens before, but she had never encountered anything as cold and calculating as this. These species were literally watching an entire civilization die so they could profit from the corpse. Ma'am, said her tactical officer, Lieutenant Carl Ross, I count 47 ships from 7 different species. If they're hostile to our rescue operation, we could have a problem. Collins was about to respond when her communication system activated. An alien voice translated by their computers filled the bridge. Unknown human vessels, this is Admiral Zakhtar of the Hegemony 4th Fleet. You are trespassing in restricted space. Depart immediately or face the consequences. Collins looked at her crew. Every face showed the same expression of disgust and determination. Lieutenant Park, open a channel to that Hegemony fleet. Channel open, Captain. Collins stood up from her command chair. Her voice was steady but filled with barely controlled anger. Admiral Zakhtar, this is Captain Beth Collins of the Human Rescue Fleet. We are here on a humanitarian mission to evacuate Kalari civilians. We will not be departing. If you interfere with our rescue operations, you will discover what happens. When humans get angry, the alien response came back quickly. Captain Collins, you do not understand the political situation in this region. The Kalari system falls under hegemony territorial claims. Your presence here constitutes an act of war. Collins had heard enough. Admiral, I've been monitoring your communications. You're here to scavenge the remains of a dead civilization. We're here to prevent that civilization from dying. I know which side of this argument I want to be on. The communication channel went dead. Collins turned to her tactical officer. Carl, what's our combat capability against 47 ships? Ross checked his instruments. 5 destroyers against their fleet? We'd be massively outnumbered, but, Captain, our weapons and shields are more advanced than anything I see on their ships. We might be able to hold them off long enough for the evacuation fleet to arrive. Collins nodded. Then that's what we'll do if necessary. While the human destroyers faced off against the Hegemony fleet, the evacuation of the Kalari was already beginning. The crystalline beings had started moving their population from the outer worlds to the inner planets. Refugee ships filled with frightened families traveled between worlds as the star grew more unstable. Dr. Jane Foster had arrived with the advanced medical team on a fast courier ship. She was humanity's expert on emergency medicine, and she was appalled by what she found on the Kalari worlds. The radiation poisoning is worse than we expected, she reported to Collins. Millions of Kalari are sick. Their medical technology is advanced, but they've never dealt with this level of stellar radiation. We need to start treating patients immediately. Foster set up temporary medical stations on the largest Kalari space stations. Her small team of human doctors worked alongside Kalari healers, sharing knowledge and techniques. The Kalari were amazed by human medical science, while the humans learned about crystalline biology. Their bodies are remarkable, Foster explained in her daily report. They can actually repair damage to their crystalline structure if given the right minerals and electromagnetic support. But the radiation is breaking down their basic molecular bonds. Without treatment, millions will die before we can evacuate them. The Kalari themselves were struggling to understand what was happening. For months they had prepared for death. They had made peace with extinction. Now suddenly, an unknown species was offering to save them all. Collins received a personal message from the Kalari Planetary Council leader, translated through their quantum communication system. "Captain Collins, we do not understand why your people are risking so much for strangers." Admiral Ray Thompson stood on the bridge of his flagship Victory as the human evacuation fleet dropped out of faster-than-light speed. 800 transport ships, 200 military escorts, and dozens of supply vessels appeared in the Kalari system like an avalanche of metal and determination. "Sir," called his communications officer, Lieutenant Brad Cooper, "Captain Collins is requesting immediate contact. She says the situation has changed." Thompson's face darkened as he listened to Collins's report. The hegemony fleet had grown to over 60 ships in the past 6 days. They were demanding that humans leave the system immediately. Even worse, they had started boarding Kalari civilian ships under the pretense of conducting inspections. "They're looking for the most valuable Kalari technology," Collins explained over the comm. "They're not helping with evacuations. They're selecting which pieces of Kalari civilization they want to steal." Thompson looked at the tactical display showing both fleets. The hegemony had more ships, but human vessels were larger and more heavily armed. More importantly, the human ships were filled with people who had come here to save lives, not steal from the dead. "All ships, this is Admiral Thompson," he broadcast to his fleet. "We came here to evacuate 12 billion innocent people. Nobody is going to stop us from doing that job. Battle stations, but do not fire unless fired upon. We're here to save lives, not take them." Captain Joe Turner of the destroyer Defiant was escorting a group of transport ships toward the main Kalari planet when 3 hegemony cruisers moved to intercept him. The alien ships were sleek and predatory-looking, with weapons that glowed with threatening energy. "Human vessel," came the transmission from the lead hegemony ship. "Halt immediately for inspection. By order of the Hegemony Council, all ships in this system must be searched for contraband." Turner looked at his tactical officer. "What kind of contraband could we possibly have? We just got here." "They're looking for excuses to delay the evacuation," his officer replied. "If they can slow us down, more Kalari die from radiation poisoning. Then there's less population to evacuate." Turner opened a channel to the hegemony ships. His voice was calm but carried an edge that his crew had learned to recognize as dangerous. "Hegemony vessels, this is Captain Joe Turner. My ships are carrying medical supplies and evacuation equipment for dying civilians. If you want to inspect us, you're welcome to try. But I should mention that humans don't take kindly to bullies." The response came quickly. "Captain Turner, you will comply with hegemony regulations or face military action. This is your final warning." Turner looked at his weapons officer. "How long since we've had a good fight?" "Too long, sir." "Signal the fleet. All ships, weapons, free. If they want a war, let's show them what humans do to people who threaten innocent civilians." The first shots were fired by a hegemony destroyer trying to disable the transport ship Mercy's Hope. The alien energy beams struck the transport's shields, causing minor damage but no casualties. The response was immediate and devastating. Turner's destroyer opened fire with its railguns. The kinetic projectiles moved at 30% of light speed, striking the hegemony ship before its crew even realized they were under attack. The alien vessel's shields collapsed instantly, and the hull cracked open like an egg. Across the system, similar battles erupted as hegemony ships tried to stop human transports and found themselves facing military escorts that fought like demons. The alien commanders had expected humans to retreat when faced with superior numbers. Instead, they discovered that humans became more dangerous when protecting others. Captain Lisa Shaw commanded the cruiser Thunderbolt, one of humanity's most advanced warships. When 6 hegemony vessels surrounded her ship, trying to force her to surrender, she responded by launching every missile she had. "Multiple missile launch," called her weapons officer. 60 missiles away, all seeking different targets. The hegemony ships had never seen weapons like these. Their energy shields were designed to stop energy beams and slow-moving projectiles. They were useless against missiles that could think for themselves and change course to avoid defenses. Shaw watched as her missiles tore through the enemy formation. 3 hegemony ships were destroyed immediately. 2 more were severely damaged and retreating. The 6th ship sent a desperate message. "Human vessel, we surrender. Please cease fire." Shaw's response was broadcast on all frequencies so every ship in the system could hear it. "You're not surrendering to us. You're surrendering to the Kalari people you were planning to rob. Get out of this system and don't come back." The battle was not going as the hegemony had planned. Their ships were individually powerful, but they had never fought an enemy that combined advanced technology with absolute determination to protect innocent life. Human tactics were unlike anything they had encountered. Commander Paul Mitchell's frigate Phoenix found itself outnumbered 5-1 while escorting a group of transport ships full of Kalari refugees. The alien ships were trying to force the A transports to stop by threatening to fire on them. Mitchell had served in the human military for 12 years. He had fought pirates and hostile aliens, but he had never been as angry as he was right now, watching alien predators threaten ships full of families fleeing for their lives. "All human ships, this is Phoenix," he broadcast. "These bastards are threatening refugee transports. I don't care about the odds. Nobody threatens innocent people while I'm around." Mitchell's frigate charged directly into the center of the hegemony formation. His railguns and missile launchers fired continuously as he wove between the larger alien ships. The hegemony vessels found themselves shooting at each other as they tried to hit the small human ship dancing between them. When Mitchell's weapons finally failed from overuse, he made a decision that would be remembered throughout human history. He aimed his ship directly at the largest hegemony cruiser and activated his engines at maximum power. "Phoenix to all transports," he said over the comm. "The path is clear. Get those people out of here." The Phoenix struck the hegemony cruiser at nearly full speed. Both ships were destroyed in the explosion, but the transport ships escaped safely with 30,000 Kalari refugees aboard. Admiral Thompson watched the battle reports coming in from across the system. Human ships were outnumbered but winning, through superior tactics and sheer determination. However, the cost was starting to mount. 3 human ships had been destroyed, and several more were heavily damaged. Then his sensor officer called out with urgent news. "Admiral, massive energy, signatures approaching from the outer system. It's another fleet." Thompson's heart sank. If more hegemony ships were arriving, the evacuation might fail despite everything they had sacrificed. But as the new ships came into sensor range, Thompson realized they weren't hegemony vessels. The energy signatures were different, and the ship designs were completely unknown. "Sir," called his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the new fleet. It's in human language." The main screen showed a woman in a uniform Thompson didn't recognize. Behind her, he could see a bridge filled with humans. "Admiral Thompson, this is Admiral Grace Nelson commanding the Earth Reserve Fleet. Sorry, we're late, but we had to stop to pick up some new toys." Thompson stared in amazement. The reserve fleet was supposed to stay in the solar system to defend Earth. If they were here, it meant Earth had stripped away its last defenses to save the Kalari. "Admiral Nelson, what are you doing here? Earth needs those ships." Nelson smiled, grimly. "Earth doesn't need ships, Ray. Earth needs to be the kind of place worth defending. And that means we don't let innocent people die when we can save them." The reserve fleet consisted of 50 of humanity's newest and most powerful warships. Many carried experimental weapons that had never been tested in combat. As they moved into battle formation, the hegemony fleet began to reconsider its position. Nelson's flagship, the Invincible, was armed with humanity's first antimatter torpedoes. When she fired a single torpedo at a hegemony battleship, the explosion was visible from 3 planets away. The alien vessel simply disappeared in a ball of pure energy. "All hegemony ships," Nelson broadcast on all frequencies, "you have 30 seconds to leave this system. Anyone still here after that becomes a target for weapons you can't even imagine." The hegemony Admiral Zakhtar found his fleet suddenly facing odds that had shifted completely against him. The humans had started with inferior numbers but superior tactics. Now they had superior numbers, superior technology, and the absolute determination to protect innocent life. But Zaktar had spent his career bullying weaker species. The idea of retreating from what he saw as primitive humans was humiliating. "All ships, attack formation," he ordered his fleet. "We will not be intimidated by these newcomers." It was the last order Admiral Zaktar ever gave. Nelson's response was swift and merciless. The human reserve fleet unleashed weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. Quantum disruptor beams that tore apart matter at the atomic level, gravity bombs that created miniature black holes, energy weapons that could crack a planet's crust. The hegemony fleet lasted less than 10 minutes against humanity's most advanced military technology. Those ships that weren't destroyed immediately began broadcasting surrender signals and fleeing toward the edge of the system. The Kalari sun was dying faster than anyone had predicted. What should have been a gradual collapse over months was happening in hours. Massive solar storms swept across the system, forcing evacuation ships to take dangerous risks just to reach the remaining settlements. Captain Chris Taylor stood on the bridge of his rescue vessel Mercy, watching the last transport ships flee the inner planets. His ship was designed for emergency evacuations, smaller and faster than the massive cargo haulers but capable of reaching places the big ships couldn't go. "Captain," called his scanner officer, Lieutenant Kelly Brooks. "I'm detecting life signs. On the mining station orbiting the fourth planet. Looks like about 2,000 Kalari who missed the main evacuation." Taylor checked his instruments. The mining station was deep in the radiation zone. His ship could probably make it there and back, but it would be close. Very close. "How long until the star goes nova?" he asked his science officer. 6 hours, maybe 7 if we're lucky." Taylor looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all volunteers who had signed up for the most dangerous part of the evacuation mission. They knew the risks. Set course for that mining station. We're not leaving anyone behind. Across the system, similar scenes played out as human ships raced to collect the last Kalari refugees. The massive transport ships were already heading for the system's edge, loaded with billions of crystalline beings. But smaller rescue vessels continued searching for anyone left behind. Admiral Thompson coordinated the final evacuation from his flagship. The tactical display showed the positions of every human ship and the remaining Kalari settlements. Time was running out fast. "Admiral," reported his fleet coordinator, "we have 847 transport ships loaded and departing. The last convoy should clear the danger zone with 90 minutes to spare." Thompson nodded, but his attention was focused on the rescue ships still in the inner system. "What about Taylor and the other search teams?" "They're cutting it very close, sir. If they don't leave in the next 2 hours, they won't make it out before the nova." Thompson understood the situation. The evacuation was essentially complete. They had saved over 11,900,000,000 Kalari. In any reasonable measure, Operation Lifeline was an incredible success, but reasonable measures didn't account for the human refusal to abandon anyone who could be saved. "Captain, Taylor's ship reached the mining station as solar radiation peaked around them. His shields were at maximum power, but warning lights flashed across his bridge as the ship's systems strained against the stellar storm. Life support is holding," reported his engineer, "but we can't stay here long." The mining station was a beautiful piece of Kalari architecture, built from the same crystalline material as the beings themselves, but it was being slowly torn apart by radiation from the dying star. Taylor could see cracks spreading across its surface. "This is Captain Taylor of the human rescue ship Mercy," he broadcast on Kalari frequencies. "We're here to evacuate you. Please respond." The reply came immediately, translated through their communication system. "Human ship, this is Station Manager Kethvar. We have 1,147 civilians here, including 312 children. Our evacuation transport was destroyed by a solar flare 3 days ago. We did not expect anyone to come back for us." Taylor smiled grimly. "That's where you're wrong. Humans don't leave people behind. Prepare for immediate evacuation." The docking procedure took precious minutes as Taylor's crew worked to safely transfer the Kalari civilians. The crystalline beings moved slowly, weakened by radiation exposure. Many had to be carried by human crew members. Dr. Susan Clark, the ship's medical officer, worked frantically to treat the worst cases of radiation poisoning. "Captain, some of these people won't survive the journey without immediate medical attention. Then we give them that attention, Taylor replied. Whatever it takes. As the last Kalari boarded his ship, Taylor received an urgent message from Admiral Thompson. Chris, you need to leave now. The star is showing signs of immediate collapse. You have maybe 90 minutes to reach minimum safe distance. Taylor looked at his navigation officer. How long to clear the danger zone? At maximum speed, 2 hours and 15 minutes, sir. The numbers didn't work. There was no way Taylor's ship could outrun the Nova Blast. Everyone on the bridge understood what that meant. Taylor activated his ship's communication system to address his crew. All hands, this is the captain. You all know the situation. We can't outrun what's coming. But we saved 1,047 people today. That's 1,847 families who will live because we were here. I can't think of a better reason to be in this business. Lieutenant Brooks looked up from her station. Captain, the Kalari we rescued want to speak with you. The main screen showed Cathvar, the station manager. Despite being weakened by radiation, the Kalari's crystalline structure still caught the light beautifully. Captain Taylor, we understand that saving us has put your ship in danger. We cannot ask you to sacrifice your lives for ours. Taylor's response was immediate. You didn't ask us, we volunteered, and where I come from, you don't abandon people just because it's dangerous to help them. But as the Mercy raced toward the edge of the system, something unexpected happened. Long range. Sensors detected multiple ships approaching at incredible speed. The energy signatures were human, but the ships were moving faster than anything in the evacuation fleet. Captain, called the communications officer, we're being hailed by the approaching ships. The face that appeared on screen belonged to Commander Lisa Shaw, captain of the cruiser Thunderbolt. Behind her, Taylor could see the bridge of a warship running at combat speed. Chris, this is Lisa Shaw. We're coming to get you out of there. Taylor stared in amazement. Lisa, what are you doing? You should be with the main fleet. Admiral Nelson gave us new orders. No human ship gets left behind either. We've rigged a slingshot maneuver using our gravity projectors. It's completely insane and will probably destroy our engines, but it should get you clear of the blast. Shaw's plan was indeed insane. 3 human warships would use their artificial gravity generators to create a slingshot effect, accelerating Taylor's rescue ship beyond its normal maximum speed. The strain would likely destroy the warships, but it might save the Mercy and its 1,947 Kalari refugees. Lisa, you can't sacrifice 3 ships to save 1, Taylor protested. Shaw's response was pure human stubbornness. Watch us. The maneuver required split-second timing. Shaw's 3 warships positioned themselves in a triangle around Taylor's ship. At precisely the right moment, they activated their gravity projectors, creating an artificial gravitational slingshot. The effect was immediate and violent. Taylor's ship shot forward like a bullet, accelerating beyond anything its structure was designed to handle. Behind them, Shaw's ships were torn apart by the gravitational forces they had created. But the plan worked. Taylor's ship cleared the danger zone with minutes to spare, carrying its precious cargo of Kalari civilians to safety. The Kalari sun finally died in an explosion visible from neighboring star systems. The Nova Blast sterilized everything within 10 billion kilometers, erasing an entire solar system from existence. But it found nothing there except empty space and cosmic dust. Every living being had been evacuated. 6 months later, Admiral Thompson stood before the United Earth Assembly to deliver his final report on Operation Lifeline. The statistics were staggering. Humanity had evacuated 3,147, 291 Kalari beings across 27 light-years in the largest rescue operation in galactic history. The cost was significant, Thompson reported. We lost 14 ships and 347 crew members. The financial expense nearly bankrupted our Colonial Development Fund. We used 60% of our military fleet, leaving our own colonies vulnerable for months. President Hayes leaned forward in his chair. Was it worth it, Admiral? Thompson's answer was immediate. Mr. President, 12 billion innocent people are alive today because humanity decided their lives were worth saving. 17 other species said no. We said yes. That decision defines who we are as a civilization. The Kalari integration into human space had been remarkably successful. The crystalline beings brought advanced technology in exchange for new homes. Their mineral processing techniques revolutionized human industry. Their stellar engineering knowledge helped humans build better starships, but more importantly, their presence changed how other species viewed humanity. Word of the Kalari evacuation spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had previously ignored human diplomatic overtures now sent ambassadors seeking trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Dr. Sam Wright, now director of Human Kalari Scientific Cooperation, presented a report on their joint research projects. The Kalari have taught us things about stellar physics we never imagined. In return, we've shared our military technology and industrial techniques. Together, we're developing innovations neither species could have achieved alone. On the new Kalari homeworld in the Centauri system, a monument had been built from the same crystalline material as their people. It rose 300 meters into the sky, catching sunlight and throwing it back in rainbow patterns. The inscription was, "Visible from orbit," written in both Kalari script and human languages. When the galaxy turned away, humanity turned toward us.